The Blood of the Dawnwalker finally has a release date. Rebel Wolves confirmed during its Road to Launch event that The Blood of the Dawnwalker is launching on September 3rd, 2026. Alongside the release date, the studio showed new gameplay footage, a story trailer, PC technical requirements, and a closer look at how the game's open world is structured. So for this update, I want to focus on what was officially shown, what was confirmed, and what I think is worth paying attention to. The basic setup is still the same. The Blood of the Dawnwalker is the first chapter of a new RPG saga from Rebel Wolves. It is a dark fantasy, narrative-driven open-world RPG set in medieval Europe with a supernatural twist. The game focuses on vampires, tough choices, and a protagonist named Coen, who exists between the two states, human by day, vampire by night. That split has always been one of the main hooks of the game, but this event gave a clearer look at how it actually affects gameplay. The new footage focused on open world activities and was described as in-engine running on PC on the latest build. Rebel Wolves showed Coen exploring the world, finding points of interest, restoring shrines, fighting enemies, unlocking perks, and disrupting the operations of Brensis's followers. Brensis is the game's main antagonist, an ancient vampire born in AD 131, and a former Roman senator who takes control of Vale Sangora. He is presented as a sophisticated but ruthless ruler known for imposing a blood tax on the human population. One of the first systems shown was the use of vantage points. Reaching one reveals nearby opportunities and helps players plan where to go next. From here, the map can point you towards hidden mysteries, haunted sites, shrines, and activities connected to Brensis's officers. That's important because the showcase presented these activities as more than isolated map markers. Some of them are tied to the larger conflict, and Rebel Wolves specifically framed open-world actions as something that can influence the story. That does not mean every activity will be deeply meaningful. We still need to see how it plays across the full game, but the events did show a clear attempt to connect exploration with progression, story, and consequence. The day and night system was another major focus. At night, Coen can use his vampiric form, and early in the game, players can unlock a perk that lets him transform into a wolf for faster traversal. Rebel Wolves also showed a daytime speed option through a hex called Mercurial Fervor. The key detail is that day and night are not being presented as simple visual changes. The developers describe them as different experiences with different creatures, challenges, and opportunities. The gameplay also showed that some activities are tied to specific conditions. Haunted sites, for example, are only accessible during the day because they require blood magic that is not available in vampiric form. That gives the day-night split more weight. It suggests that when you explore may matter, not just where you explore. The event also explained more about feeding and corruption. Human blood is the most effective, while animal blood can also be used, but it is less efficient. Feeding increases Coen's corruption level, which is shown next to the health bar. That corruption level matters because higher corruption unlocks more vampiric perks for purchase. So feeding is not just a healing mechanic, it is also tied to progression. The more Coen feeds, the more access he appears to gain to his vampiric abilities. That is one of the more interesting systems shown because it connects survival, power, and character identity in a simple way. Progression also seems to involve exploration. In the footage, Coen finds a manual that unlocks a perk called Precision. But finding that manual does not automatically give him the ability. It makes the perk available. To actually learn it, he has to go to a shrine and spend experience points. Some perks also cost time. That is a major detail from the event. The Blood of the Dawnwalker uses a time system where certain actions can move time forward. Learning perks can spend time, and the developers have said that some quest decisions can also do this. The game appears to show the player when an action will advance time. The important clarification is that time does not pass in real time. It does not move forward just because you're standing around, walking through the world, or exploring. Time only advances when you choose an action that clearly informs you time will pass. That makes the system sound more deliberate than stressful. From what was shown, this does not seem like a constant countdown pressuring every second of play. It sounds more like a structure where specific decisions spend time and the game tells you before that happens. The developer specifically said to think of time as a resource, one that you can choose when to spend it or when not to. That is worth knowing because the story trailer also frames the larger conflict around a 30-day countdown. Coen's family is in danger, a coronation is approaching, and the story is built around preparing, finding allies, taking risks, and deciding how far Coen is willing to go. The exact pressure of that time system is still unclear. We know it is not real time, we know actions can move it forward, but how restrictive that feels across the full game is still something that needs to be proven. The showcase also touched on abilities that can be discovered through hidden places, forgotten books, and ancient texts. Haunted sites can reward ancient texts that seem tied to strengthening Coen's magical abilities. That's a good detail because it means progression is not only about gaining experience points. Exploration can lead to new tools, new perks, and new options. Rebel Wolves also highlighted a practical combat change based on community feedback. Previously assigned abilities no longer require opening the full skill wheel every time. Instead, the game now has quick selection. That's not the kind of detail that grabs headlines, but it matters. It shows that the studio is still adjusting how the game feels to play before launch and that they're listening to community feedback. Another major system shown was Infamy. In the gameplay footage, Coen disrupts Brensis's forces by clearing a camp and destroying blood supplies. As he does this, his infamy increases. The game describes Infamy as a reflection of how much Coen is disrupting Brensis's followers. Higher infamy leads to harsher edicts, and those edicts make the world more challenging. The event also showed that individual officers can have their own aggression levels towards Coen. One example was Ambrose. If his aggression reaches its peak, a new questline can unlock, influencing the story and shaping the future confrontation with Brensis. That's probably one of the most important pieces of the showcase. It suggests that attacking the power structure of the world may come with both rewards and consequences. You may open new opportunities, but you may also make the world more dangerous. Again, the full depth of that system is not something we can judge yet, but the confirmed idea is clear. Rebel Wolves is trying to make open world disruption feed back into the broader story and world state. The story side of the event gave a little more context as well. The trailer showed Coen trying to save his family, gather allies, and prepare for a confrontation with Brensis. It also leaned into the idea that Coen's choices may push him into a darker territory. The developer commentary added more about the vampire rule of Vale Sangora. The vampires are described as rulers who demand blood, reshape religion, and treat humans almost like a herd. But the developers also talked about moral ambiguity and how their rule reflects older systems of power in the valley when humans were in control. That does not make the vampire sympathetic, but it does suggest that Rebel Wolves is aiming for something more layered than a simple monster story. That is one of the details that caught my attention. The blood of the Dawnwalker is not just presenting vampirism as a power fantasy. At least from what was shown, it also connected to rule, survival, exploitation, and compromise. On a personal level, I'm cautiously interested. I'm definitely getting Witcher-like vibes from the game. That comparison is hard to avoid, especially with the dark fantasy tone and the studio background. But for now, the more useful question is what Rebel Wolves has actually confirmed about its own systems. The game looks good with a strong medieval atmosphere and enough supernatural edge to stand apart visually. The combat footage also looks promising, with sword attacks, vampiric abilities, magical effects, feeding, and what looked to me like some parry-focused combat. That catches my attention, but it is still just footage. I won't know exactly how it feels until I have the game in my hands. The same goes for choice and consequence. The trailer shows intense moments and it may suggest that major outcomes can shift depending on player decisions. But unless Rebel Wolves confirms specific branching consequences, character deaths, or romance options, those should stay in the category of possibility, not confirmed fact. The PC requirements were also shown during the event. The short version is that the game has listed minimum, recommended, ultra, and 4K ultra targets, with all configurations requiring 16 GB of RAM and SSD storage. The high-end requirements scale sharply, especially for 4K ultra, so PC players will want to check the full chart before launch. For this update, the bigger takeaway is the overall direction of the game. The Blood of the Dawnwalker now has a confirmed release date, it has a clear gameplay structure, and the event gave us a better look at how Rebel Wolves wants time, feeding, corruption, day and night, exploration, and infamy to connect. This doesn't prove that the game will deliver on all of it, but it does make the game easier to understand. For me, the most promising part is the possibility of an open world RPG where exploration has more narrative weight. A world where the activities you choose are not just there to fill space, but are meant to affect factions, officers, questlines, and the pressure around Coen's story. That is the part I think is most worth paying attention to after this event. So The Blood of the Dawnwalker launches September 3rd, 2026. The release date is the headline, but the systems shown during the event are what make this update worth paying attention to. If you guys want to stay up to date with The Blood of the Dawnwalker, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.